Hey everyone, Steven from Roll from Combat here, and I have some breaking news that is actually old news, but is just starting to appear in various feeds right now. So it looks like that Baldur's Gate 3 live action series movie is being developed by Netflix, says new report. And this is just from yesterday, but if you look, this actually came out in September. This came at the end of September, but I don't know why. I looked for this and I couldn't really find anyone talking about it. It just sort of flew under the radar. But with the fact that Baldur's Gate 3 won the Game of the Year at this year's Games Awards, and if you take a look at, obviously Hasbro laid off 1,100 people. If you take a look at the latest sayings by Chris Cox, that he said that they're going to be focusing on fewer, bigger brands, digital gaming, and a rapidly growing direct to consumer and licensing businesses, this is suddenly becoming much more relevant, this news. And it completely makes sense if you think about it, because, well, Hasbro has actually been very successful at licensing their properties. There's obviously all those Transformers movies, and take it, love it, hate it, whatever you want to say about those movies, but they made a ton of money, and Hasbro made money off of them. And then obviously you had things like Battleship, and then the biggest thing is that those movies came and then they kind of went. But then with the unbelievable, massive success of Barbie, and I can't emphasize enough how big Barbie was this year, in a year where movies did absolutely atrocious. One of the, if not the worst year for movies I've ever seen in my life. And Barbie just absolutely destroyed at the box office and had broke records left and right. You better believe those Hollywood people are starting to look at other properties that they can turn into movies. And the big issue with Transformers and Battleship is that those are like, they're not necessarily properties that would adapt easily to a Hollywood or to a Netflix. Is that those are like science fiction, like big robot properties with tons of special effects. Barbie did great because it actually had character development, and it was actually based on people, and there were special effects, but it wasn't like a $200-300 million budget just in special effects. It was mostly costumes and sets. And I guarantee they're going to start looking at properties, they being Hollywood, that centers around humans, people, things that they can actually turn to a movie and not have to spend $200-300 million on. In fact, I guarantee they're probably not even going to want to spend $100 million on these type of movies. So, Baldur's Gate 3 makes total sense, because Baldur's Gate 3, in fact, it beyond makes sense. It's based around a property that's been around for a long time. Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 are over 20 years old now. And by the way, for those of you who didn't live through this, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, especially 2, was just as big. It was just as big as what's going on with Baldur's Gate 3. Like, Baldur's Gate 2 just swept the entire video game world and the zeitgeist, and that's all people were talking about when that thing came out, because it's fantastic. It was a great game. Baldur's Gate 3, it was a combination of, it came out of nowhere, which it really didn't, because it's like been in it's been in early access for 2 years, but no one expected it. And on top of that, if you look at Baldur's Gate 3, it's a role-playing game, but in the strictest sense, it's actually a role-playing game. Is that, sure, there's fighting and there's Dungeons and Dragons spells and magic items in there, but the heart of the game, if you play Baldur's Gate 3, 95% of that game is character development, story, love interests, and people talking. That is the majority of the game. And Hollywood loves that, because they're like, oh my God, this we can turn into an actual property. Because they've been trying this, okay? They tried with Halo. Okay, how great of a game can how great of a television series or movie can Halo be? Well, we found out there's not a lot to like hook onto. Okay, you got Master Chief and you have Cortana and you have some history, but there's nothing there. There's no there. But you have Baldur's Gate 3. This thing is oozing. It's just oozing with story and characters and backgrounds and world development and villains. Like, oh my God. You better believe this is happening, okay? In fact, there's almost no reason for it not to happen. The reasons are plentiful. And whether it's going to be a movie or a TV series, I'd imagine it's going to be an actual live action series. It would be perfect. And on top of that, Netflix really needs this because they're running out of stuff. Stranger Things 5 is filming now, and that's wrapping up. The Witcher, Witcher's not doing that great, and that's going to probably wrap up. One Piece looks amazing, and they need something to follow up Stranger Things, and this would be a perfect project to follow up on Stranger Things. So, what does this mean? This means that Hasbro is going to go the route of actually licensing businesses and licensing products and licensing IPs. I think they're going to do that rather than selling. And that completely makes sense. And they won't make as much money. Okay, don't get me wrong. Like, the whole reason they bought E1 for $4 billion is they kind of wanted to do everything. They wanted to actually make the movies, make the TV shows, and then make the subsidiary products and make like the action figures and, the books and everything afterwards. That did not work out because it turns out, and a lot of companies have tried this, by the way, they're not the first one. And most times this usually fails because they realize, wow, you know what? It's really hard to actually make our own movies. But sometimes it succeeds. That's how Marvel started out. Marvel licensed out their properties, Spider-Man and X-Men, like they licensed out all their A-plus properties to Sony and Fox, and they were making the movies, and then they realized, you know what, let's make our own movies. But instead, all they had left were like B and C level action heroes, and they had to settle with things like Thor and Iron Man and Guardians of the Galaxy, and boy, did they turn that into gold. They managed to milk that for everything that it was worth. But you know what? Those stories are very, very rare. This is the more common story is, you know what? Let's just whittle down our company. Let's stop trying to do everything. We have licenses and IPs that are worth billions and billions of dollars. And let's just start sending it out and giving it to people. Have them make the properties for us. Then we do things like make the action figures or make D&D, properties based on Baldur's Gate 3, especially if a TV show's coming out, and then they can make indirect money. And that's exactly what was happening with Stranger Things and with Critical Role. That's how they were making all their money. It's that these properties became insanely popular. People were checking out Dungeons and Dragons, and they made money. And you know what? Is it billions of dollars or even hundreds of millions of dollars? No, it's not. But if you keep doing it and you keep being, you keep yourself in the zeitgeist and you make yourself something that people latch onto and remember, and if Hasbro owns, this was very important, if they own all the properties and all the people in the game, if they own Minsk and they own Shadowheart, they own all the main characters from Baldur's Gate 3, then they can license them and make action figures and put them into D&D Beyond, and then just, put books out on them and so forth. And this is not new to them. In fact, way back when Hasbro was trying to sell Magic the Gathering in, as a movie or TV series, is that Hollywood told them that you can't because there was nothing to latch on to. There was no one there. So they created the Planeswalkers for Hollywood. That's why Planeswalkers were made, because they needed main characters. And this is the thing. They have no main characters for D&D, if you think about it. Like, they were talking about this. So when the D&D movie came out, everyone's like, well, why didn't they make a Drizzt movie? Okay, because Drizzt is insanely popular. Well, there's a lot of reasons. I'm not going to go into all of them, but if you know anything about Drow, and you know anything about Drizzt, you can probably guess why they didn't do a Drizzt movie. The point is, they didn't have any characters in the world of D&D that they can really latch onto and make movies. So when they made the D&D movie, they had to invent all these new characters. And by the way, I love the D&D movie. Now, they don't need to do that. They have characters. They have characters that people love. They have characters that have been extremely well developed. And best of all, they're all humans, more or less. And so it won't be that difficult to create. It'll be no more difficult to create a Baldur's Gate 3 TV show than it will that for One Piece. So I believe this is the direction we're going to see them go more and more in. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Magic the Gathering TV show. I know they were talking about it, or as like an animated show, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more and more properties being turned into movies. And at this point, I think Hasbro is happy just to get whatever they can get and just, turn it into something for Netflix or something for Peacock or whatever you want. And by the way, this is the hotness right now in Hollywood because The Last of Us, huge hit. Mortal Kombat movie, it was actually a big hit. It wasn't a great movie, but it was a big hit. Sonic the Hedgehog, huge hit. Super Mario Brothers movie, gargantuan hit, like beyond gargantuan hit. So Hollywood is very good at doing what succeeds in the past. So they're going to look at this and like, oh wait, this is the best of everything. It's a video game and Dungeons and Dragons, and Hasbro will help support it. It's not that risky of a property, and especially after it just won Game of the Year, and I guarantee a lot of people, at Netflix, they're playing it. They're not unfamiliar with it, and that's something else. It's like you want the actual people creating the product to be familiar with the source material. So I guarantee all these people have been playing Baldur's Gate 3, and I guarantee they're thinking, this would make a great movie, or this would make a great TV series. I wonder who has the rights to this. Let's find out. So I found this interesting, and I'm going to be following this quite a bit. Anyhow, with that, do check out our D&D and Pathfinder products over at battlezoo.com, because we at Roll for Combat do create these products, and we have a ton of free products out there. You can check out our Jewel of Indigo Isle adventure path for both 5e and Pathfinder, and you can download the entire first chapter for free over at battlezoo.com. Anyhow, with that, thanks for joining us. I'm Stephen Glicker, and I'll talk to you later.